Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's eSpeaks, we're talking about a topic that is seriously cool, which is virtual reality. It's really what the so-called metaverse is all about. It's technology that we humans become immersed in as we do our jobs and live our lives. So where are we with enterprise virtual reality? To discuss that, I'm joined by Luke Wilson, founder and CEO of ManageXR, which is a management platform for VR and AR devices. Luke, thrilled to have you with us today.
James, great to be here.
So let's take a look at the state of enterprise virtual reality. I think there's a number of things holding us back, but I'm somewhat surprised we're not further ahead than what we are. What are a couple of key trends you see in the year 2022?
Yeah, I think VR technology has really excelled over the last 5 years. You mentioned hardware or things keeping us back. The hardware is getting to a point where adoption can happen in a real significant way. And now it's really just about the time that it will take for that adoption to happen. We've been seeing it pick up more and more over the last couple of years. And I think we are starting to see some real significant action happen. But yeah, we're now at the stage where enterprises can purchase hundreds, thousands of devices and use them for very, interesting things. Frankly, this technology is incredibly powerful. And it enables workflows and just ways of doing work that weren't possible before. So, right now where we're seeing companies, for the last couple of years have really started to invest in VR and see how they may be able to take advantage of it. And that's really what our goal is as a company, is to be able to help other businesses just unlock the power of this technology and see true value from it. When enterprises adopt this technology, it's always a question of return on investment. Like any type of new purchase that an enterprise makes, they have to see real ROI. And so that is where the market is focusing on certain parts of enterprise virtual reality, because that's, you're kind of gravitating towards where they can actually see real value right today. And so that's where I like to talk about certain use cases and where our enterprises actually, why are they buying headsets and why are they putting them on their employees' heads?
And that's really my question. I mean, what is the enterprise value? If you're making a sales pitch to an enterprise executive, what would you tell them? Hey, you need this because of why?
Yeah, exactly. So certain use cases are really starting to see some traction. Training and simulation is a really big one. And, we've heard it talked about a fair amount. And the value there is pretty simple. Enterprises spend billions of dollars training their employees and their staff on how to do their jobs, whether that's manufacturing jobs on the line, or it is jobs out in the field on an oil rig, or you're a pilot and you need to learn the new cockpit of the next aircraft. All of these different things require a lot of expensive training, sometimes, full simulation labs and real hands-on work with, onlines or, in the field, which can be expensive or dangerous. So if we are able to recreate those experiences, those learning and training environments in a virtual world, we're able to give people the ability to train repetitively, actually get their hands on things. They're not just looking at a 2D video screen and reading about how to do it. They're actually getting able to do it. And they can do it anywhere in the world at any time. And so that's the real value, that VR can bring to training, is the ability to be in that training environment, to do the thing, but to do that at any time and anywhere.
Well, what about the reality of colleagues interacting with one another in a VR environment? Does it help? Does it hurt? I'm thinking like, well, it might be a tad weird. Maybe we just need to get used to it. I mean, what's your take on human interaction in the VR world?
I think collaboration in VR is a fantastic use case for particular things. I think this meeting between you and I'd prefer to have it over video. I like to see someone's face and all the different human emotions that are kind of hard to pull off in VR when you're looking at an avatar. But if you and I were actually discussing a physical thing and we actually needed to look and talk about it, and maybe we're looking at a 3D model, we're an architecture firm and we want to talk about what the landscaping of this new building is going to look like, to be able to have that physical object in front of us to point at it, to talk about it. That's where VR can really bring another layer, because we are no longer kind of stuck to this 2D panel in front of us, but instead we have this whole virtual environment to engage with whatever we're talking about. So yeah, we're seeing that with architecture firms, construction, all kinds of things like that, where a lot of value there.
Well, actually, I imagine you could incorporate a video screen into a virtual reality environment, right? So you wouldn't have to have one or the other. You could have video with avatars, correct?
You're exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can have videos with avatars. You can also have some people in VR and other people using Zoom, right? And now you have 2D panels floating in the world. And that's definitely, already happening. You're kind of mixing these two worlds, depending on whatever medium and technology people are using to get into these meeting spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm wondering what is holding companies back. I guess part of it is definitely a hardware issue. I've obviously we've seen people looking into virtual reality devices for years, and it seems really cool. And I'm thinking, well, that's going to catch on fast, but it's been surprisingly slow. So, what's a problem the companies face? What is holding them back?
Yeah.
And any advice you'd give to that?
Yeah. I think overall, this is a brand new technology. And so it takes a while to adopt. And I think the biggest thing, you mentioned a hardware issue, right? It's not only do you have to buy the software now, if I were to kind of sell some computer software to an enterprise right now, it'd be relatively easy for them to start using it, right? Because they already have the technology to run it on. But right now, one of the challenges of, innovators in this space right now is when you're trying to get an enterprise to adopt virtual reality, you also have to get them to buy all the hardware, to take on the management challenges of a new set of hardware, some IT challenges there for sure. And so there's a heavy kind of activation energy right now in order to start adopting the next new thing. That will go down because companies will eventually find the thing that makes them buy VR headsets. And then now you've got the hardware there and you can start to add more and more to it. I see these VR headsets as toolboxes. And right now we need to find that one tool that a company really needs before they're willing to buy the whole toolbox. So, they get their hammer and their toolbox, and they've got one thing in their toolbox now. And over time, it's going to be really easy to fill that up with more tools.
I guess companies might also be reluctant and think to themselves, well, I'm going to buy a headset in the year 2022. It's certainly going to be obsolete by 2023. So I'm always on this edge. Do I want to invest now? Because the wave is cresting so quickly. I might as well wait 12 months until the headsets are there. Is that a feeling going on?
I mean, I think that's totally fair. Yeah, I mean, it's getting a little bit better, but yeah, it used to be every 6 months there was a new, better VR headset. And that's a good sign for the technology, right? It's just getting that much better. But it's starting to slow down. I think the Quest 2 has been out for, well over a year, and it's going to be out for another year before they've got their next device. And it's certainly a question, but now we're at the stage where enterprises have enough, this hardware is stable. It's very usable. It's whatever the current model is, it's still going to be great, during the next generation as well. And yeah, it's a matter of how early you want to get involved. So I think those enterprises who are really trying to lead the way now is the time where they're starting.
Interesting, really.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about your company, ManageXR, and how it addresses the needs of the market. I mean, what is the XR advantage? Why go to XR?
Yeah. So, I kind of alluded to the IT challenges of new hardware. And the bottom line is when you have a lot of devices out in the field, let's say you're an enterprise using VR to train your employees, you may have hundreds or thousands of devices. And our main, our main product is a device management platform for VR and AR devices. So that gives IT leaders and whoever else in the company who needs essentially control of the entire fleet. We're talking about keeping devices up to date, making sure their security settings are set properly, really basic stuff, but at scale, absolutely crucial. You cannot, an enterprise cannot have hundreds of devices that aren't being tracked and monitored and just, made sure that they're meeting all the criteria they need to meet. And, we kind of came into this in an interesting way. ManageXR started in healthcare we were actually putting devices on patients' heads very specifically to reduce pain and anxiety. So we came from this almost as a user. We saw a lot of value in VR in healthcare. We still have a lot of customers there as well. But at the time, there were no ways to kind of scale confidently with all these devices. So we had, like, let's say 10 plus headsets at Stanford Children's Hospital. Super fantastic program. And we got the opportunity to scale that across 200 hospitals. Now, running a program of 10 devices in a single location where we are the experts and we're on the ground is a completely different challenge from having 200 hospitals where you're asking doctors and nurses to become their own IT VR experts. And so there are a lot of challenges in that process that we set out to solve, making VR easy to use, making it easy to manage, and a few little things that at scale need to be solved.
Is it hard? I would imagine, obviously, you need really skilled staff to be supporting ManageXR. I mean, is it hard for you to manage the people who really know the technology at this point?
You know, our goal is to build a product, a software suite that makes it really easy. And so we as a company essentially will work with other companies who are adopting VR. We help them on the whole management side. So we'll recommend devices to purchase. And, in the end of the day, ManageXR is one part of a larger solution. I like to think of VR, a VR solution in a company. Let's say you're starting to build out a VR training program. You need the right software, you need the right hardware, and then you need the right management system. So those three things together create what an enterprise needs to actually use VR. So we really help on the management piece, that pillar there, and we can offer guidance on the other two. But typically, when someone comes to us, they have the other, they have the software thing at least figured out usually, and they know where they're going with the hardware. And so then we get to act as consultants and consultative selling really of a software service, telling them how they're going to really build this program from 0 devices to 1,000.
All right, let's look to the future of enterprise VR. I mean, obviously, it's all about the future because that's really when it's going to be happening. When do you expect mainstream adoption? Mid-decade, or what do you see? What are a couple of milestones, and when is this going to really be mainstream?
Yeah, I guess the first question is mainstream to the consumer or mainstream to an enterprise?
Let's say, mainstream to even the enterprise.
Yeah. I think that over the next 5 years, we're going to see some real serious adoption. And we're seeing it now. And I think 5 years from now, most people will, most companies will have a VR headset somewhere in their office. Now, again, it comes down to the return on investment, and this is where companies are focusing now. And over time, as you've kind of gotten the foot in the door with a couple of pieces of hardware, that's when you're going to be able to continue to grow a VR kind of adoption within a company. So I think, within the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot of stuff happening. There's really nothing that I see as a massive hurdle, right? If we can solve the challenge of scaling, which is really what ManageXR is focused on, the hardware is fantastic. And then the biggest thing is having the right software, like what experiences is your company really looking to be able to offer with this technology? So that starts as training for many, but it can also be mindfulness meditation, or like we've talked, collaboration, and all these different productivity tools that VR can offer. So yeah, well, right now we're seeing real early adopters pick this up in real ways, right? We work with companies that use thousands of devices, and these are Fortune 100 companies. So it's exciting. It's just getting started. I feel like we're just scratching the surface, but it'll take some time.
Luke, that's really neat, fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise today. I greatly appreciate it. Come back sometime and talk to us again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.